In 1989, Davis made Art Shell the first African-American coach of the modern era.
One thing you got to understand is the only way to play this game is you got to get down in the dirt and get nasty. Let's go.
He said, but I want you to know one thing. I'm not hiring you because you're black. I'm hiring you because I feel that you are the best possible candidate for this job at this time.
Art Shell has won in his Raider debut.
He is no longer the first black coach in the NFL. He's just a winning coach right now.
They asked Art Shell, how does it feel to be the first minority coach? And he said, I'm not the first minority coach. And they looked at him in puzzlement, and they said, well, who was? He said, Tom Flores was the first minority coach.
10 years earlier, Davis had hired Tom Flores, a Hispanic coach with Raiders heritage. As a player, he was the first quarterback of the Raiders. As a coach, his roster included Jim Plunkett, a former #1 overall pick, who had failed in New England and San Francisco.
I think the Raiders was the only organization who could have really pumped some life in Jim Plunkett.
Back is Plunkett. Time to throw. Deep to the end zone to Branch. It is caught by Branch. Touchdown Raiders.
Here's a guy that I watched in New England get beat to a pulp. And all of a sudden, he's Super Bowl MVP.
Jim Plunkett climaxing his greatest comeback as sports has ever witnessed.
This was our finest hour. This was the finest hour in the history of the Oakland Raiders. To Tom Flores, the coaches, and the great athletes, you were magnificent out there today.
We got 30 minutes of Raider football, baby. 30 minutes of Raider football, and it's all ours. Let's go. No let up. No let up. Let's go. Go!
Tom Flores isn't just a great coach in our league. He's one of the great coaches of all time. When you have great coaches, then after you have great coaches, you get great players.
Just win.
You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing.
Just win.
Just win.
The Prince came calling. Prince Pete Rozelle. He had a silver slipper. He tried it on, and the only man it fit was Al Davis.
How did the NFL's man in black describe himself?
Devious, ruthless, cunning.
Al Davis's dark side, next. For Al Davis, just win, baby, meant sometimes bending the rules.
I'm going to dominate if I can, other than maybe life or death. The things that I want, I'm going to dominate them.
Raider rule number 1, cheating is encouraged. Raider rule number 2, see rule number 1.
We had a guy named George Anderson who was our trainer. George was an expert in pets, probably most of them illegal. What he did was he took the stuff from the, like you make casts out, and then he molded it for me. What I essentially had was 2 casts. So when I hit somebody, boom, that was my first shot, right to the eye. I could take them down if they hit them just perfect.
I mean, if they were illegal or not, you know, I'm not sure. Anything that you're wearing has to be checked by the umpire in the pregame warm-up. Of course, you could not wear it in the pregame warm-up and then put it on for the game, I know that.
If they were to use the word devious just by itself, it would be annoying for the moment, but when you throw it in, they like to throw it in with, as I said, brilliant, genius, winner, devious, ruthless, cunning. No, I'll take it.
Take it. Al Davis loved it. He liked being the rogue, playing the villain.
This was Al Davis's character. Clearly, this guy was a carnivore from the get-go.
The Raiders' red meat was always the rough stuff. And fights were frequent occurrences.
And he's brought down at the 28-yard line. Here's a flag, and there's Ben Davidson being jumped on by one of the Chiefs. Two more Chiefs come in. There's a big pile-up. Davidson and Taylor are going at it. Here come all the Raiders. Holy Toledo, it's a free-for-all.
I just like to fight. I went to Bowling Green. If I threw a punch, they sent me back to New Jersey. When I was with the Raiders, if I threw a punch, that was good, as long as it was at the right guy.
One thing they'll do is take a swing at you. If you hit them good, they'll take a swing. There's 4 or 5 guys that are demented on that team.
Short fuses went a long way with the Raiders, and playing with a clenched fist was a point of pride. It also meant open season on stars of opposing teams, like Lynn Swann.
The blow was illegal, delivered with what would seem to be some type of malice.
To some, the hits were criminal. To the Raiders, just part of the game.
Chuck Noll said that they were the criminal element of the NFL, but that was the way that those guys played.
They played that way because Al Davis wanted it that way. The harder the hits, the more the Raiders' reputation grew. Truth is, the Raiders never did play well with others. And Al Davis was never a favorite of other owners. He didn't help matters when in 1982, he sued the NFL to move his team to Los Angeles.
I think his entire life since the merger has been consumed with getting back at the National Football League.
The thing that disturbed me most of all was the bad faith and fair dealing. For 3 years, I waited to hear Commissioner Rozelle finally tell us the reason that he wanted to split up this territory amongst the owners. They wanted it for themselves.
I feel very strongly that he is wrong, that he's doing something treacherous for this league.
What do you think of Al Davis trying to come to Los Angeles?
Well, I don't care to discuss that. That's better get that from Al Davis.
Davis was never a popular figure because he's an abrasive kind of guy. And his insistence on dominating and winning everything tends to rub a lot of people the wrong way.
Doing warm-ups before the game, he would come around and walk around our team, and he would say things like, "How you doing today? You know, you're looking sharp," and you know he didn't really mean it. He was coming over to get an edge, and I thought that was pretty crappy.
As a former head coach of the Raiders, Mike Shanahan knew just how to deal with his old boss's tactic.
We're on a 10-yard line and we're going out of the end zone, and Al is about the 25 or 30-yard line out in the numbers, just with his hands folded and, you know, watching our team. And the players saying, "Hey, coach, we can't run anything over there. Tell them to get out of the way." I said, "Elvis," I said, "Hey," I said, "throw a go route. And if you happen to get the ball close to that guy in the white outfit over there," I said, "you won't bother me."
So Elvis takes the ball and throws it as hard as he can at Al Davis's head. The last second, Al ducks out of the way, and it almost hits him. He looks over and he sees Mike, and Mike's over there waving at him.
And he flips me off. Flips me off back to the huddle because he probably knew where it came from. But from that time on, I've never seen him on that side of the 50.
We just do that if it's Al Davis. We don't get the X.
When you're fighting all the time, you're fighting with the commissioner, you're fighting to move to LA, you're fighting in court, you're fighting with the city of Irwindale, you're fighting with the city of Oakland and the county of Alameda. When it's always a fight, I just believe that saps organizational energy. And I also believe that when there's so much paranoia festering and this everyone's against us.
As far as good faith, there's no question in my mind that I never got the same treatment that anyone else got in their respective cities from the very beginning.
That keeps you from asking the hard questions as an organization.
Like, how do you fire head coaches at the rate of nearly one a year for the past decade? Or set a mark for losing that may never be matched? Up next, find out how the team for all decades turned the last one into a lost decade.
As Marie Lombardi once wrote Caroli and I, that's Carol, my wife, a note after we had won our first Super Bowl, enjoy it now, because fame is fleeting. And she wrote again, enjoy it while you can.
Al Davis often spoke of the torch that lights the way for the Oakland Raiders. But in 2001, that flame began to flicker. After the Tuck Rule game, Davis traded head coach John Gruden to Tampa Bay. In 2002, the Raiders made it to the Super Bowl for the first time in 2 decades. There, they were beaten by a familiar face.
The dagger's in! We're gonna win the Super Bowl!
Still, it was easy to envision Davis soon accepting another Lombardi trophy. In the new millennium, however, his trips up to the podium took on a far different tone.